I pledge to every citizen of our land that I will be president for all Americans. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again.
Hello and welcome to the Newsmakers with me, Imran Garta. By Donald Trump's standards, it was a calm and understated speech. He congratulated his rival, Hillary Clinton, on a hard-fought race and told the crowd he would be a president for all Americans. But those words did not seem to do justice to the event, one of the most seismic changes in the history of American politics. The Republicans have control of the White House and Congress, the first clean sweep in almost 90 years. And at the helm will be Trump, the billionaire businessman who has become the voice of the disillusioned with the political establishment. Our newsmaker today is Donald Trump, as we ask if he's the president America needs or the one it deserves.
It is my high honor to introduce to you the President-elect of the United States of America, Donald Trump. The American people have spoken, and the American people have elected their new champion.
The political outsider now set to be in the White House. Donald Trump has been elected the next president of the United States.
I love this country.
Trump defeated Hillary Clinton, winning many of the key battleground states, and even traditionally democratic ones, appealing to voters disillusioned with the political establishment.
Ours was not a campaign, but rather an incredible and great movement.
Critics have warned a Trump presidency will be divisive and dangerous. In victory, Trump's focus was on unity.
To all Republicans and Democrats and independents across this nation, I say it is time for us to come together as one united people.
It's a dramatic end to a dramatic campaign and a clear message from the people. It's time for a political shake-up. Born June 1946 in New York, the celebrity businessman has dabbled in everything from real estate to steak, casinos to universities, as well as building an entertainment empire, owning the Miss Universe beauty pageants and starring in his own reality TV show. Trump floated the idea of running for president as early as 1987 and even entered the race in 2000 as a Reform Party candidate. After 2008, he became one of the most outspoken members of the birther movement. And then, in June 2015,
I am officially running for President of the United States.
Trump shocked many by surging ahead in the primaries, with all other Republican candidates dropping out. He ran a controversial and sometimes nasty campaign.
I'd like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
But his straight-talking and anti-establishment message resonated, winning over voters. Donald Trump has big plans for his first 100 days as US president, starting with what he calls draining the swamp, implementing changes to clean up Washington. He's promised to move on immigration, suspending the admission of Syrian refugees, and beginning plans to build a wall along the Mexican border. He says he will repeal and replace the Affordable Health Care Act and renegotiate international trade treaties, including pulling out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Donald Trump has gone from a wildcard candidate to the president-elect, but he will now have to work with the very establishment he's fought against. So, will Trump be able to deliver the change he's promised? Yvette McCullough, The Newsmakers.
Well, joining me now in the studio to discuss the new president-elect are Austin Rasmussen, the acting vice chairman, or chairman rather, for the Republicans abroad in Norway, and Katie Solon, the chair of the Democrats abroad. Also joining us via satellite, a former U.S. Ambassador William Courtney in Washington, D.C., and political commentator and author Peter Mathews from Irvine, California. Thanks all of you for joining us. Austin, let me start with you. You're the card-carrying Republican here. We spoke last night before the results came in. You were a little conflicted about your support for Donald Trump because, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're not a major fan of Donald Trump, the man, but you were voting as a Republican. You were voting for the Republican Party, and you were voting for the person who was not Hillary Clinton. Are you thrilled?
Well, to the last part of the question, I'm absolutely thrilled. This is an exciting day. The results, it's fantastic. As far as my reservations in support for Trump, one, they do come from where he was lacking in policy, and I guess you could say the failure to articulate early on exactly what his policies would be and his solutions. But in principle, I would have opposed him anyways, because I am the card-carrying Republican for these purposes here, but I'm a classical liberal. I'm not a conservative. So a lot of the policies that he has proposed, I would oppose in principle anyways. My first choice in the primaries was Rand Paul, and that's the kind of line of Republican that I go with, and it's that classical liberal way of thinking. Mm-hmm. But this is a great day. It's an exciting day. This is a good opportunity for the Republican Party, and we've been waiting for a victory like this for quite some time.
Okay, now before I ask, how did Trump do this? How did he achieve this? Let me ask you, Katie, as a Hillary Clinton supporter, as a Democrat, how did she lose this election?
Well, it's the same question, isn't it? And almost. This was her election to win. I'm sure there's a lot of soul-searching going on in the Hillary camp at the DNC, within Democrats Abroad, which is the group that I represent. It certainly is an opportunity for us now to really assess our values and our positions. We must do a frank assessment of what we all did right and what we did wrong. And we must listen to everyone in our big tent party and the people outside of our party. I don't think that anybody is in a position yet to really determine what she didn't do right, what more she could have done. Because if we knew that today, we would have known it yesterday, and then we would have known it a month ago, and we would have been able to adjust. There's also congratulations, of course, to President-elect Trump, to the Republican Party, to Austin and everyone else. But we will hold ourselves accountable for what we did not, what we did not do right. And we will hold President-elect Trump and the Republicans accountable too, to do as he said he would do in his speech, and that is unify the United States and make sure that...
Okay, so let me take that and pose it to Ambassador Bill Courtney. Do you believe that Donald Trump will represent and serve all Americans, and that he can be held to account? When we look at the results that came out, I mean, not only has he won the election against all odds, but of course he's got control of Congress, he's got control of the Senate, control of the House of Representatives. Is there a way for him to be held to account, or is this just going to be, is it going to be the Trump show for the next 4 years?
Yes. So let's take a look at a historical comparison to better understand how Trump can do this. Ronald Reagan, when he was elected in 1980, he, like Trump, ran against Washington. He ran against what he called the establishment. He said that Washington was the problem, not the solution. Reagan won by marshaling a lot of white, blue-collar Democrats who came to be called Reagan Democrats. Those folks and their younger heirs this time voted for Donald Trump. So they are Trump Republicans now. Secondly, Ronald Reagan ran as a hardline opponent then of the USSR. This time, Trump ran as a hardline opponent of ISIS, the Islamic State, and radical Islamists. And third, Ronald Reagan was criticized for being supportive of more authoritarian leaders around the world, just as Trump has been criticized for for supporting Putin and some others. But in the end, Ronald Reagan came to embrace human rights and democracy. He came to represent all Americans, and he finally negotiated important arms control agreements with the Soviet Union, which people had thought were impossible before. So he ended up bringing the country together.
Peter Mathews, there's a fair amount of optimism there from Ambassador Bill Courtney. Do you share that optimism?
Certainly parts of it. I think that we should give President-elect Trump a chance, and he did say he would like to work with Russia, for example, on better relations and maybe even work with them to fight IS, Islamic State. He also wanted to open up, have better relations with other countries in terms of their defense responsibilities with NATO. He wants other countries to pay a bit more of their share, the 2% of their budget, the GDP, on spending. That will balance the burden somewhat, and I think overall that we should give him a chance in foreign policy. Domestically, he wanted to cut taxes to grow the economy. That's supply-side economics. He's trying it again. Let's see if it'll work this time. A lot of interesting things coming up, that's for sure. This was totally unpredictable, although I did say there would be a Brexit vote. I predicted about a week ago there could be a Brexit-type vote where this wave election of people dissatisfied with the status quo, with losing jobs, might come to vote who are not in the polls right now.
Yeah, Peter says Brexit vote, and that's fascinating, Austin, because the Washington Post calls it a, quote, worldwide revolt against globalization, the hegemony of the technology utopianists, and the arrogance of the overeducated. Does that sound about right to you?
I think that sounds pretty much dead on. This isn't a movement that's just happening in the United States. It is happening in parts throughout Europe. We saw Brexit, but I think another smaller case study that's really interesting to watch is to see the Pirate Party's success in Iceland, for example. See what's happening in various elections throughout Central and Western Europe. There's a very strong anti-establishment movement that's happening. Even in Norway, for example, the fastest growing party in Norway is Liberalistene. And this is a party that stands for little government involvement in the lives of individuals and getting that establishment out of the way.
But still, we have, for example, a New York Times exit poll with a breakdown of where Trump's support comes from. Overwhelmingly male, white, over 45, middle-income earners. 48% of those who earned more than $200,000 a year were supporting Trump. That doesn't sound like your working-class guy who's angry at the establishment. It sounds like wealthy people.
I mean, of course, they're going to have demographics of wealthy people, but then we saw how well Trump did today in the Rust Belt, right? He's speaking to a lot of different demographics. We can slice and dice the numbers as much as we want. We can look at the wealthy guys, and I'm sure they have their reasons for voting for Trump, but so do the guys in the Rust Belt, and so do the people who are a little bit intimidated by the speed of the implementation of globalized policies, whether it's with TPP and these types of trade agreements that foster cronyism and allow governments to choose winners and losers, which ultimately create bad services and products. This is exactly what Trump was fighting against. But the other, as I said earlier in the program before, my fear with Trump is that he's going to go too far the other way with protectionist policies, which will ultimately hurt the economy as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. And before we broaden it out and bring in other countries and look at some of the global reaction, let me ask you, Katie, then, as a Democrat, is there some sense of regret that perhaps you guys chose the wrong candidate? Because if the anti-establishment candidate won in Trump, maybe you guys should have gone for Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, I mean, it's a question that another question that we really can't answer, but what if we'd had two anti-establishment candidates? Hillary Clinton has to be seen as Democratic Party establishment. We have an opportunity now to explore a lot of other sides of the Democratic Party to try to pull together as a party, to really be stronger together. We right now are going to be a party without a leader. Donna Brazile is the interim chair. Because Hillary Clinton didn't win, she will not be appointing or suggesting a leader for the DNC. President Obama may or may not do it. So it really will be a competition for the various parts of the party and for different leaders and personalities to find out who is going to lead the party forward. And we will be looking forward. So it's going to be a very interesting time for Democrats.
Okay, let's broaden this out now and take a dip into some of the international reaction that came in from all over the globe to the momentous vote result.
I want to congratulate the American nation with the conclusion of the electoral cycle and Mr. Donald Trump with this victory.
I hope to work with the next US President Trump on many global issues.
We will work with the new U.S. president to ensure a steady and sound development of the bilateral relations and benefit the people in the two countries and around the world.
This is for sure a difficult moment in the relationship between the United Nations, the United States, and the European Union.
Germany and America share values. On the basis of these values, I offer close cooperation to the future President of the United States of America, Donald Trump.
On my and my people's behalf, I want to interpret this choice of the American people as good, and I wish them a successful future.
This context calls for a united Europe, capable of making itself heard and of promoting policies wherever its interests or its values are challenged.
Ambassador Courtney, any surprises to you that the Russians seem to be pretty satisfied that Trump's won?
That's not a surprise. Mr. Putin, President Putin, has all along indicated support for Donald Trump as a candidate because, in part, Trump said some nice things about Putin and about Russia. What is more interesting is that in this primary election campaign before, both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump were calling for a retrenchment, if you will, for pullback of U.S. engagement abroad, including more protectionist trade policies. So even if Hillary Clinton had been elected, probably we would be seeing the United States pull back some of its activities abroad. For example, she turned against the Trans-Pacific Partnership, even though she had supported it before as Secretary of State. Most all Republicans support Trans-Pacific Partnership. And her husband did something like that with North American Free Trade Agreement. So what we're going to see, certainly for the next few years, is an experiment in which the United States is going to be pulling back in international trade activities, probably pulling back in some other areas. Syria might be one of those, for example, because George W. Bush, Donald Trump ran against nation building as a purpose for U.S. foreign policy. 9/11 changed the circumstances for George W. Bush, but we've had an unhappy experience, by and large, in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Donald Trump probably is going to pull back and not get engaged in that. And that may mean, for example, some pullback in Syria and support of Turkey and President Erdogan.
Peter Mathews, is this going to be it? A protectionist zeitgeist, a recoiling of American power?
I don't think so entirely. There'll be a movement in that direction, but we can't do that entirely. And the United States is the one number, it's a global power, the superpower still, extension all over the world with military bases, with diplomacy. So I don't think Trump will be able to come up with an isolationist policy, but there'll be more balancing of focus on domestic policy and having other countries take their share of the burden in foreign affairs. At the same time, we'll still be engaged with the world. I think Trump is talking about more like fair trade, not free trade, but fair trade, where the terms of trade are more even. So he wants to renegotiate some of those trade agreements, like NAFTA, for example, and he's against TPP entirely. So it wasn't against trade or international involvement. It's a more balanced, nuanced way of doing it. Now, it'll be interesting to see what Bernie Sanders' influence will be there as well, because Bernie Sanders had a tremendous groundswell of support against our job exports and outsourcing of our jobs, the gap between rich and poor. And Trump is a right-wing populist, unlike Bernie Sanders, is more of a progressive left-wing populist. But some of those ideas do come together in a sense. I just hope that Trump stays on message about uniting the country and not speaking about ethnic differences in a negative way or immigration bashing. I think if you could unite the country and bring people together now in a new way of saying, this is a new era right now, we've got to work on making the country and the world better, he could be a successful president.
Right, but Peter, if this is how he got elected, isn't there going to be an element of trying to placate those who brought him to power and building that wall and keeping Mexicans out and having the extreme vetting that he calls of Muslims, whether that's banning Muslims or people from countries that have an ISIS problem or not? Isn't he going to play ball and going to have to live up to some of those promises?
Well, he will have to. The thing is, these folks are not going away, but he can expand his base now. He doesn't have to rely on them to win the primary again in 2020. So he might pull back on some of those commitments. For example, the wall. That's virtually a physical impossibility, as many people have said. The cost of it, and it really wouldn't work the way it should. And I believe deporting 11 million illegal immigrants, he's already pulled back on that before the election took place. So he's going to have to curtail his commitments to some of the extreme groups on the right-wing side of his flank. And in order to broaden his base, he'll have to do that to unite the country. And I don't think he's beholden to those people as we think. Some people think that he is. So it remains time to see what happens as time goes along as to how he will move. But he has to unite the country and broaden his base. He won by very little margin of popular vote. He may have lost the popular vote. I'm not sure at this point. I haven't seen the numbers yet. But he won the electoral vote. But the popular vote is what counts in terms of him being able to accomplish things and getting reelected once again in 2020 if he's so interested.
Now, Austin, he has to broaden his base. Yes, he did appeal to a lot of those on the far right, the sort of populist, angry vote. What if the cat's out of the bag? What if he can't put a lot of that back in, even if he tempers his views on a lot of these policies? What if what he's unleashed becomes tremendously problematic for the United States?
Well, the fact is, a lot of the things that he's promised, he can't really get done without the cooperation of Congress anyways, unless he does it by executive order, which is exactly the type of executive use that he criticized Obama so much for using. Obama has set a precedent for this now. Obama has set the precedent of I have a pen and I have a phone, and if Congress doesn't listen, then I'm just going to circumvent you and do it anyways. But Trump and most of the Republicans criticized Obama for doing that. So Trump has made a lot of promises here, but he needs the cooperation of Congress to get it done. So if Congress doesn't cooperate on these, I think it'll be easy for Trump to fall back and say, hey, listen, I wanted to keep these promises, but it's still these establishment guys that are keeping me from doing it.
What do the Democrats have to do, Katie, to get back in power, maybe to make a dent in 2 years' time in the midterms, and then to get back in power in 4 years?
Well, it's one thing to come in as an outsider and say that what is happening is not working, so something else should be happening, but not have specific policy ideas or plans, have to come up with them, have to implement them, have to produce something, have to be successful. He's got less than 2 years to do that. He's going to have, as some of the guests earlier today said, a short honeymoon period. So we're going to have to hold him accountable for the time that he really now is going to be the one governing. But that's, on the national party level. As far as we're concerned, Democrats abroad, we've got members in 190 countries around the world. And in some way, we are unofficial ambassadors for the United States to people who live, to other citizens of the world. We've got our work cut out for us to explain this to people who don't get it. I mean, we barely understand it ourselves. We're stunned, we're shocked, we're disappointed. We want to recover and move forward, but we're going to have to explain to other peoples how this happened. We're going to have to make sure that for the people around the world that are nervous about what Trump unleashed, that does not describe every American. Does it describe the majority? No, because he did lose the popular vote. It looks like 100,000 votes by now. But we need to keep explaining to people that there are a variety of people and opinions in the United States, and that we're not monolithic Trump thinkers, and the policies and the ideas that he's espoused, and especially the unsavory ones, are not what most Americans or all Americans think or believe.
Very briefly, please, Austin.
Yes, what I think is going to be interesting to see how the Democrats unfold with the Republicans because of these certain promises that Trump has made, whether it's immigration or appointing a special prosecutor or special investigator into Hillary Clinton's crimes.
Alleged crimes.
I'm just going to say crimes. If the Democrats are really looking for a call to unity under Trump, then you would think that they're not going to stoke the flames of these promises either. They can't speak out of both sides of their mouth and say, Trump, you need to unite the country, you need to unite the people of the country, and then turn around the next day and say, listen, he made all these promises and now he's going back on it. And I anticipate a lot of double speak from the Democrat Party as they try to regroup themselves.
Okay, unfortunately, I've got to wrap, so sorry about that. Katie Solon, Austin Rasmussen, Ambassador Bill Courtney, and Peter Mathews, thanks all of you for joining us. Now we leave you with a few more pictures from the day America voted and elected Donald Trump. You've been watching this edition of The Newsmakers with me, Imran Garda. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.